a while ago, me and one of my other friends, Adam, sat down and watched the first episode of Superman the Animated Series, and I really enjoyed it. We've just been busy schedule-wise, and I haven't had a lot of time to be able to record with him. And I have been asking Kevin about attempting to do the same thing with Batman the Animated Series, but I have flaked on it a time or two. But I finally got to it. I put on 2 episodes right before this because I had watched it like a week or 2 ago, but then I moved out, and that was a whole thing, and I was like, wow, I don't remember anything from these 2 episodes. So I just finished watching them, and I wrote some stuff down so that I could talk about it.
One of the first things I kind of thought of, I was texting you a little bit about this. At one point, I was just like, they don't really have any good animated stuff anymore, like this Superman or Teen Titans or whatever. Like, I feel like Young Justice was the last good one, and it just makes me sad.
I think more recently, and I don't even think it really does count, but the Superman show, because it premiered on Adult Swim, so it's not really a children's show.
Yeah, and I mean, even Young Justice towards the end started to shift from that kind of kiddie market, which makes me sad for these kiddies.
I think really only the first season of Young Justice was meant for kids-ish.
Yeah.
It's definitely sad that I don't know when it came out exactly, but I remember I watched a lot of Batman the Brave and the Bold, and I love Batman the Brave and the Bold. It was such a fun show. That show is one of the main reasons I love Batman, because it's just a whole lot of, it's the perfect formula. It's just throw Batman in with any other superhero.
Yeah, no, I was a little the opposite kind of. I got started because my dad had Batman, the animated series, Superman, and Justice League on box set. So when I was like 5 or 6 one day, he was just like, you are going to watch these, and we are going to sit down, and we're going to watch this, and if you like it, we're going to watch them all. And that's exactly what we did. So I got into it then, and then I was like, well, what can I watch that like comes on now? And he's like, yeah, there's like nothing on. Like 2002 to 2007 or so, there really wasn't any good shows. I know there was the Batman show, and it had good moments, but it was never solid. And then Brave and the Bold was on Cartoon Network, and I did watch that one as it started. Yeah, that was a fun one.
You said a gap between 2002 and 2007?
Ish. That's kind of what I think of when I...
Yeah, was the last one Justice League Unlimited or Batman Beyond?
Ooh. Which one was later? I don't remember. I think Batman Beyond was the last one that kind of wrapped up.
Probably, because Batman Beyond had a Justice League-ish alternate future episode.
Yeah, because I do remember the Return of the Joker coming out right around when I was getting into all of this, and that was like kind of the last new Batman stuff that was really coming out, kind of targeted for my age at the time. And I just remember there kind of being a lack of new stuff, and I was kind of like sad. And like I said, like now it's kind of the same way. Like there's nothing new aimed at kind of kids the way this stuff was.
And that sucks. Either or, DC or Marvel. Like there's such a plethora of great things you could... Like it astounds me that there's been a singular Fantastic Four cartoon. I think there might have been 1 or 2, but like a noteworthy one. Yeah. It's about a family with powers. Family with power goes to space, do wacky stuff. Like that would intrigue just about any child.
Yeah, I know there was a 90s Spider-Man one too that I watched a lot growing up, and there have been a couple Spider-Man things here and there, but none have really stuck, you know?
That's true. I haven't gone back to watch it, but whenever it was on TV, I enjoyed the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. And that was back in like sometime in like middle school, high school, I think.
I remember the one that I really liked was the Spider-Man, and he was like part of the team, and it was like Iron Fist, White Tiger.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, that was the last thing I really watched. I was like, wow, this is good. I want to keep watching this. But I'm pretty sure it got canceled pretty early on, or something happened.
I don't know, something happened.
That's just something that I thought of. That, like I said, there's no real good thing for kids to be like looking forward to now. Like, if kids find this, they're like, wow, that's really cool. I want something else in that sort of sense. There's just nothing really there. And I mean, you obviously have the MCU stuff, but like, there's a difference between like a live action movie and an animated one, you know, for kids to really get into it.
You can do so much more with animation. Nothing against live action superhero movies, but they weren't made for live action. It was made as a comic, as a cartoon for cartoon.
Yeah, and I know there's a new Batman series coming out by Bruce Timm, one of the two guys who did the animated series, but he has said several times this is going to be aimed at an older group. It is not meant for children.
And that sucks. Well, I don't think it's probably going to be great, but just the fact that it won't be for kids.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not at the point where either of us have kids, but like if we had kids and like they were like starting to get into it, if we had to like try to get them into it, we'd go to Batman the animated series, and there's only 3 seasons of that. I mean, and then they're like, "What's next?" And you're like, "Nothing." They haven't redone anything like this really in a long time, other than movies here and there.
It is funny because it would be Batman the animated series. What's next? I guess Superman the animated series. What's after that? Justice League. The Justice League Unlimited, the Batman Beyond, and then it's done.
And then just all those spin-off movies that ranged in quality. I mean, some are really good, but some are also so mediocre.
I liked a lot of the Batman, the animated series movies, and Chloe and I have started watching Batman, the animated series, because back in high school, whenever she broke up with me, that's when I got into Batman proper. It was my edgiest days, and I was like, gosh, I don't know why, but I resonate with this man running around and dressed up as a bat. But
not processing trauma.
Yeah, definitely not that. But yeah, and I've watched it already, but Chloe started watching it with me one day because I had it on in the background, and Chloe's like, I really like the art style. I really like the music. And she was like, I think I kind of want to watch this. And so we've been watching it.
Yep. You know, people who aren't into it, you'll just have it on and they'll see it and be like, wait a second, what's this? This is actually kind of cool. And like, you sit down and watch it and you're like, this holds up. It's still really good.
And the fact that it all came out in like the 90s.
Yeah.
Shake my head.
I mean, it kind of, thinking about like the history of Batman, like Batman 66 with Adam West saved Batman. They were planning on selling him off because the sales were way down, and then that show came out and it boomed, and then Batman was campy for forever till the 1989 movie, and even then there were a lot of goofy parts there, and then they went and ruined that with the bat nipples and stuff, and then Batman was kind of in limbo for that time where he had blown up into this mainstream thing, but almost as a joke, and then they came out with this series and everyone's like, oh, we need to start, like, this can be a thing now. Like, this is a good thing to do again. It doesn't have to be campy and jokey and nipples and plastic and shiny things. It can be about human beings.
There should be some sort of middle ground for the campy to the dark and edgy, which Batman the Animated Series does very, very well.
Exactly.
And, like, while I was watching On Leather Wings, there's a moment with Batman and Alfred, and he's reading the newspaper, and Alfred's like, someone's thrown out the window. That wasn't you, was it? And he said, no, I throw butlers out the windows. I was like, ooh, that was like spicy. But it's just like a little bit. That's all I need, because I just need to know, oh, he has a sense of humor. He's just zeroed in. He's just focused on what he's doing, but he is still a person.
It was the first thing to really make Batman try to feel totally human.
Alfred?
This show.
Oh, yes.
I mean, outside of a comic book. The old 1966 show, like I said, was just camp. That was the whole point. It was never meant to be real. It was meant to be funny. You can sit down with the family and watch it. And then all the other movies were like, he's larger than life, all this blah, 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 blah. I'm Batman. And then Kevin Conroy, oh, the man, the myth, the legend.
May he rest in peace.
I know. He comes in, and he was really the first person to like really do a separate Bruce Wayne and Batman.
He set the template.
Yeah, I was looking through some old clips the other day because I did have that thought, like, was he really the first one to do two very separate voices for Bruce Wayne and Batman? And looking through it, every actor, when they were in the costume, always had like a little growl, but if you played like their normal voice, you could be like, okay, that's just them trying to make their voice sound deeper. Like, it's not them trying to change anything. And then you have Kevin Conroy, who, when he's Bruce Wayne, it's very light. Whenever he goes to the zoo or the lab in the first one, and he's talking to the scientist or whatever, he's like, oh, hey, Doc, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, and then the next scene, it's back, and he's like, I already checked this. I know he's lying to me.
Yes, I wrote a note about that.
And I was like, whoa! I'm like, he flipped. I'm like, those were two different people. Like that's kind of crazy.
A while ago, I saw right after he passed, I was looking into a bunch of older clips about him, and a lot of people were releasing things about him, like the people who used to work with him and the people that hired him for the Batman voice, and some of his like older interviews. And
Mhm.
he was talking about how he was a classically trained actor. He'd done a lot of like musicals and Shakespearean stuff. And I was like, that's really interesting. And he said that the Batman resonated with him because A, he was a closeted gay man, but B, he was like, there was a lot of depth to Batman, and he mirrors a Grecian tragic hero and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, he does. I was like, teach this. I was like, Batman, this belongs in schools. It's a very easy way to go like, hey, teaching morality, things like that, teaching a code of justice, etc. Like, it is hard. Batman is the extreme of trying to uphold such things, but so were things like Grecian tales and like Perseus and etc.
Yeah, I know he wrote a comic. I can't remember if it was like Finding Batman, Becoming Batman, or something like that. It's a comic he wrote. It's pretty short for Pride of a few years back, and it goes through sort of his struggles trying to find work, as he had recently come out right before he got the role of Batman, and he had landed a pretty big theater part, and then the company found out that he was gay, and they like dropped him for it. And he was broke. It was in the middle of the AIDS crisis, so all of his close friends were in the like hospital and dying, and he couldn't find a job. I think him and his dad were having problems, and like he was living in a van.
Yeah.
And he found this, and he was just like, I need anything, something. I'm doing everything I can. And, you know, he comes in to read whatever, and he said, he like looked through the like, script, and he's like, kind of like you said, this guy is a tragedy. Like, there is so much hurt and pain in him that's what his voice needs to be. So he went to speak it, and he said this like dark growl came out of him, and like everyone stopped and was like, can you keep doing that? And he's like, I guess, because like if you ever hear him talk, yeah, he has that really deep voice, but his Batman voice is like an extra level. And I mean, he pulled it out of all the pain and hurt he had been feeling because he had been so beaten down recently, and that's where that voice came from. And like, again, that's crazy for a show like this, but I mean, that was the level, like, every single thing that went into this was that kind of level. And I mean, the first episode, at first they had planned it to be the Christmas with the Joker, because that was the production order at first. They wanted it to be Christmas with the Joker, but then they were like, the 1989 movie with Jack Nicholson, that was the Batman and the Joker. So they were like, we can't start off with that. It's going to just instantly be put next to that, because that movie also had like Christmassy vibes to it. There's parts of it that take place in Christmas time and stuff, but like, so they were like, we can't start with that, but like Batman and Joker is the combo. So they were like, we need something kind of small to ease people into it and start it off. And they're like, we need some random villain who most people probably don't know, Man-Bat. No one really knew who he was. It was Batman and Man-Bat. That's like two sides of the same coin type of thing. Start off with that, and that way people who had no clue were almost going in with the same knowledge of people who have been reading comics for years, because Man-Bat was nothing at that point, you know?
It works very well for this, just like the setup for the episode, especially knowing this background, because I was watching through it, I was like, this is a very solid detective plot and detective idea, because Man-Bat is a nobody. And if you casually know of Batman, you don't know who the Man-Bat is. And the fact that it starts with, oh, there's a bat creature, and you're like, oh, that's the Batman. No, it's not. There's another bat creature. You're like, what? And it leads you through a mystery throughout the entire thing. I really just want to get into it. The first two episodes were the Catwoman episodes, and that's what I watched initially whenever we decided to do this. But you're like, no, release order.
Yeah, I looked into that a little bit. It's stuff with the network. The production order, which is the order they were written and whatever, was on Leather Wings, and then Christmas with the Joker. They released the Bat and Cat Part 1 first as a teaser special, whatever. It wasn't, I don't even know if they really released the full episode first. It was something weird with that, but they were trying to build this hype, and Bruce, Tim, and Paul Dini were like, we want to do this. This is how we have this set up. And the network's like, but we need to build hype for it. And they're like, then let us do our thing. And I think they showed the first one, the Bat and Cat Part 1, on like a limited release or something, and it didn't do very well.
Yeah.
And they were like, can we do our thing now? And they were like, fine, you get one shot, whatever. And then they did that, and like it took off. Because I mean, that's the build-up they had planned, and that's how it works. The first one's meant to be for casual deep fans, whatever. It's meant to be for anyone who wanted to watch it, and that's exactly what it did. And then they moved into Joker with that because, like I said, everyone knew you had to do it as soon as possible, but starting off with it would be such a daunting task with
going up against the Batman
Joker
movie.
And then casting Luke Skywalker is crazy too, but that's a different...
He's incredible, everything he does. He's such a talented actor, Mark Hamill. But no, we'll get to him. So, yes. On Leather Wings.
I do remember I've watched that episode so many times as a kid, and I didn't know until pretty recently, like in the past couple of years, that was the first one. That was the pilot, and I guess that's why I had watched it so much, and that one had always stood out to me. I always remember the scene when he's kind of in the building sneaking around the guard.
Yeah.
It was the task force when they captured him in the building, and he was, like, using, like, everything he had to, like, take them out. It wasn't just pure, like, punching everything.
Since I wrote down the notes, I'll talk through it practically beat for beat. I hope to just rekindle the certain memories and feelings you have about certain things.
Yeah.
So, On Leather Wings is marked on Maxwell's episode 3, but it is the pilot. Okay, first, the opening for Batman the Animated Series. I love it so much.
Oh my god, it's perfect.
And there's the word in there. Like, usually, I'm a fan for a cool theme song with, like, Danny Phantom. Really cool theme song, there are words in it. Or Ben 10, etc. But I really like how easily the tone is set as bad guys. Bad guys blow a building. Bad guys blow a building, can't be stopped by the cops. Batman arrives. And I'm like, oh, and then he stops them. And then the cops find the bad guys they couldn't stop. And then off in the distance is the Batman. It's just so easy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have watched any Batman. You can watch that 45 seconds and go like, oh, I know what Batman's about.
Yeah, it also perfectly sets this Gotham. It goes through with lymphs and stuff and kind of the old-timey noir feel cars and stuff. And, like, as you're watching it, you're like, so there's these older cars giving like a 40s, 50s vibe, but then there's some of this tech that you know is very modern. So like it's trying to be like timeless type thing. Like anyone could put this in any time and be like, yeah. At this point too, again, the fans of Batman were either very casual fans who had seen the movies or the people who had been reading every comic dating back to the 30s, 40s, to some people, Batman was stuck in the, like, 50s vibe as whatever, because they wanted that serious Batman prior to Adam West. But then on this same hand, you had the people who had watched all the new kind of dark, gritty Tim Burton style Batmans with this, like, authoritarian type vibe in Gotham. And this captured both in a theme song that made everyone feel comfortable with it, because they watched and like, yup, that's the Batman that I know right there. Like, you know, it captured every aspect any casual fan could have wanted.
That's exactly how I kind of started my notes for the episode. It starts with 2 police patrollers on a blimp. You've never seen Batman before. You watch this, I'm like, is that a blimp? And there are 2 police officers, and one of them saw like a blip on his screen. And then he was like, I think I saw something. And the other guy is like, pull it together, man. And he said, no, I really think I saw like something with bat wings. And so they pull above the clouds to look, and they don't see anything. And then it cuts down to through Gotham, something's flying. And you do see the shadow of like some sort of large bat. And again, it could be like an artistic thing, because not just Batman the Animated Series, but many mediums have dabbled with how Batman is perceived by others in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was really cool, because again, it's like, is that Batman, or is that some sort of creature? And then you see this creature break into Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, is the name of the building.
Yeah.
And there's some security guard. He's recording some sort of like...
He's sending in his voice tape for a radio DJ job.
I think that's so funny. On top of the idea that there should be more children's superhero shows, I like how, even though this is a children's superhero show, it's complex. It's more than just 2-dimensional. They could have just had the guard sitting there. The creature breaks in, he screams, and he gets thrown out a window. But no, like, he had his own life, which included him setting in an audition for this. And I was like, that's really cool. But
can I go back to the theme song for 1 sec? I just kind of thought of one more thing.
Of course.
So the 1989 Batman theme by Danny Elfman kind of became a very iconic theme song for a superhero. And this one, it doesn't use that track, but its opening has a lot of similar like vibes to it of that song. And I just always thought that's also, like I said, the perfect way to do it. It's its own thing, but if you really stop and listen to it, you get the same feeling you got when you listen to the 1989 one. And even as a kid, like you said, all these theme songs had lyrics, but this one didn't. And like as a kid, I never remember being like, oh, I wish I could just skip past this one. This is dumb. No, I would, as soon as it came on, every time I'd like jump up and like I try to mimic him, or like just like every time I was like, oh, let's go Batman. Is he gonna get his ass beat this time? Like it felt part of it every single time, and it's a great intro.
It's one of the greats, really.
Mm-hmm.
But the security guard is interrupted by the bat creature. Bat creature breaks in, swipes something, and throws the guard out the window. And then that immediately cuts to Gordon. I thought, again, while I was watching this episode, I was really just thinking, what if I was a first-time watcher watching this? But at the same time, I'm not a first-time watcher. So, as a first-time watcher, I don't know it yet, but it's setting up some larger players in Batman's universe and who's important to Batman. It cuts to a scene with Commissioner Gordon talking to the mayor, and he's reprimanding Detective Bullock. Bullock was interviewed by a reporter, and he gave his spin on everything. And Commissioner Gordon was like, this is BS, and you shouldn't have done that. In the background, Harvey Dent's there, and it's I was like, that's really cool. And he's like flipping the coin. And again, if you're a casual Batman viewer, even if you don't recognize that's Two-Face, some guy flipping a coin, that's a red flag for a Batman fan. Bullock pleads the mayor to give him just a section of officers to go after the Batman. And he's like, yeah, we have some to spare. But yeah, it has all these guys. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then after they have their little squabble, it cuts to Batman and Alfred in the Batcave. And that's where Alfred asks him if he's been throwing people out buildings. And Batman rebuttals that he only tosses the butlers. And then he reads the paper, gets up. He begins to do some detectiving. And I'm like, yes, detective work. Another very important thing for Batman. Which it's really sad that it took up until Robert Pattinson, or I'm going to say Pattinson, to get the entire, he's a detective. Not only is he a detective, he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. So it's really fun to see Batman realizes that there have been 2 other robberies of other pharmaceutical buildings in the past 2 nights. Just nobody was harmed in the other 2. And then he gets up and goes to Batmobile, and he's going to go find the pattern that he doesn't see yet. Alfred tells him if he should cancel something for Bruce Wayne. And he's like, yeah, I think you should. And I think it's really cool to see the dichotomy of Alfred doesn't say, Batman, you want me to cancel this for you? He says, do you want me to cancel this for Bruce Wayne to Batman? And I was like, very, very separate identities.
All of that. Like I said, every little thing that's set up, it's the first time that in mainstream media, it's really like Batman and Bruce Wayne are 2 different people, you know?
Yeah, but I really enjoy whenever it's cool to have a secret identity and like they both do their separate things. But something I enjoy about Batman is that his secret identity, both sides, kind of like benefits one another. And like he can use the Bruce Wayne to get information as Batman, or he does the Batman stuff to push him into the right court as Bruce Wayne to go talk to certain people with his influence.
Yeah, there's one part, I don't remember if it was the animated series or it's the Justice League. It's something, it might have even been Batman Beyond, but it's in this same universe. At some point, there's some telepath or something, and he's in Bruce's head.
It's Batman Beyond.
And it's like, oh, how did you know that wasn't you or whatever? And it's like, the voice kept calling me Bruce. I don't call myself Bruce. And then Terry goes, well, what do you call yourself? And he just smiles, and I'm like, it's the same vibe that is set up right here, years later.
I don't think there's been a sequel as competent and as successful thematically as Batman Beyond, because Batman Beyond is literally from scratch, and they did it correct.
Yeah.
There's so much throughout Batman Beyond that I'm like, that's probably the coolest thing I've heard Batman say, or the coolest thing I've seen Batman do.
They set it up from the first 5 minutes that this universe's Batman is there.
He knows what he's about. He knows who he is.
You know? Yeah, exactly. It's not like it's a thought that they very obviously came up with later as they're making more. Like, it was a thought from day one that carried through this series, Justice League, and Batman Beyond.
After Alfred refers to Batman and Bruce Wayne separately and cancels his appointment, Batman heads out. It's the first scene we see of the Batmobile, and it's kind of extended. It's really nice. I like seeing, because it leaves the cave, drives from Wayne Manor into the city, and I've always liked the idea of how far Wayne Manor is from the city, because he literally has to commute to get there. If something happens in Gotham, he is not in Gotham to deal with it. He has to get to Gotham and deal with it.
Yeah.
He reaches Phoenix Pharmacy, and he infiltrates it. And as he's grappling up to the top, there's some couple that starts to make out, and then they see Batman, and so they call for the police. Batman shows up. He sneaks in. We'll get to it later, as you were saying earlier, that you get to see all the things he can do, because he's not just, as they've dumbed it down to these days, he doesn't just show up and punch people in the face. That was one of Chloe's big red flags about Batman. She was like, I don't really like him because he's violent, and she didn't even know he was a detective. And I'm like, no, not really. I was like, he's a detective, and when there are things like, I don't know, a killer crocodile trying to rip your head off, then he's violent. And it's more just like self-defense.
Yeah.
And it's not like a big problem, because even like The Batman, the movie with Robert Pattinson, I kind of enjoyed how like violent he was, because it's supposed to be like a really early Batman.
Exactly. That was the like point with him, that he's still very much learning, very much homemade, very much young, that he still has a lot of pent-up anger he doesn't know what to do with. And even you said they went into the detective side of it all, and yeah, they did, but he still makes several key errors. Like, yes, he is arguably the best one that in Gotham right now, but he still messed up several times, and it cost them. It's just, that's a separate thing with that movie that did a lot of things right, but it is in the same spirit and vein as this series, I feel like.
I would love to talk about that movie eventually. The thing of him messing up, I really enjoy that, because both in this episode and the Christmas episode, spoiler, I'm getting through it, I'm going to talk through it, he screws up at the end both times. Like, he follows the clues beat for beat, and I'm like, oh, this all makes logical sense. And then it is not the person he thought it was, and I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But he infiltrates the pharmacy, and there's some guard reading a newspaper, and he throws a gas pellet. She gets knocked out, and then you swap over to Bullock. He's been called, and he's like, all right, everyone show up. My entire force, the helicopters, everyone. Helicopters, the blimps, and everyone just show up. Then it switches back to Batman, and he starts to investigate. He investigates for prints, in which he finds some like footprints headed off, like running away, which were the guards. And he finds the guard's tape recorder, and he starts playing it back. And after he finds the tape recorder, he finds hair. While I was watching it initially, I couldn't tell what it was. It kind of looked like a twig, because I wrote down twig ? But later on, it gets clarified as hair. But he finds hairs. And then the police arrives, and Batman leaves. That's the entire scene of him, like, trying to escape without, like, really harming anybody.
Yep.
And then what was really cool for me is that I didn't write down details, which is sad. I just wrote down fun escape scene, disarms guards, and some guards basically corner him, and he's in a room with another policeman. And then the policemen on the outside are like, let's just tear gas him. And so they throw in a tear gas thing, and one of their men's in there. And Batman has to save that guy, get out of there as well. And I was like, awesome. I was like, this is Batman. He didn't show up there for fights and problems. He showed up to investigate and to leave. He just wanted information. And I was like, great Batman. We cut to Bruce Wayne in the daytime, and he's visiting the zoo. And it's fun, as I was saying earlier. He's looking for this man, Dr. March, and this is what I like about his alter ego. He uses Bruce Wayne. It was a throwaway line. Dr. March was like, you invest millions into our science program, and you think you own the place. And I was like, nice. Bruce Wayne uses this as an in so he can get some information. I've always found the argument really interesting of the whole, which is the mask, Batman or Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
And it's a conversation by itself. I could talk about it for much longer than I should be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm the same way there.
I think I definitely do want to talk to you about that. So I'm not going to go any further with that. I'm just going to keep going. Yeah. But you meet Dr. March. He's this old, really, really cranky guy, and he's talking about how the bats will outlive us. Bruce Wayne shows up. Hi, Cat.
Yeah, hi, Cat.
Bruce Wayne shows up, and he's like, I have an infestation in Wayne Manor. And I came to this super, super smart science place so that you could just tell me what kind of bats they are. And I was like, wow. I like how consistently he plays up the dumb rich boy in Batman the Animated Series.
And it works every time.
It works every time. It's just really fun. He's kind of like almost a buffoon-ish, and I really enjoy it because I'm like, this man could take everybody out in like a 2-mile radius.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I've found that also just works in life. If you ever want to know stuff, just act dumb, and people will like let their guard down and just start telling you things, and then you're like, oh, good to know. People are way more likely to tell you something if you come to them for some dumb reason and being like, I'm just trying to like learn or see what's going on, versus this is what I think, tell me why I'm right or wrong.
They'll just end up giving you more information.
And it's absolutely perfect for what he was trying to do. And yeah, he just waltzes in all himbo-esque.
Yeah, it almost gives me Superman vibes, but again, another separate topic. But Bruce Wayne shows up, and this Dr. March, he's kind of like fanatic-y about the bats, and he's like, the bats are gonna outlive us, etc. He's crazy. And then you meet the Langstroms, you meet 2 other doctors, and it's Miss Langstrom, I can't remember her name. Francine Langstrom and Kurt Langstrom?
Kirk, yeah.
But yes, we're introduced to both Langstroms. Bruce Wayne uses the tape recorder to show them the sound that these bats in his chimney are making. And they said, give it here and we'll look into the sounds, but they're sure it's not too much of a problem. And he's like, all right, cool, I'll leave this stuff with you. He also hands them the hair sample and asks them what kind of hair this would be from. And I was like, okay, cool. We're trying to put little things together. And once Bruce Wayne goes home, Batman takes over. Batman gets to continuing their investigation. But Dr. March calls and informs him that they're just normal bat sounds and that he probably just has an infestation of brown bats and just to get over it. And that's the point where Batman picks up the phone and he switches to the Bruce Wayne voice. And
in costume still.
I wrote it down.
I love that.
It was hilarious. I was like, Batman masks as Bruce Wayne. And I was like, that's funny. It really caught me off guard.
Threw me off so much. The first time as a kid, I didn't think too much of it, but as I would get older and would like start to like get it more, I'd watch and be like, whoa, like that's crazy.
But yeah, it's really cool. It's really fun. And then the immediate Batman's like, he's lying. And I'm like, oh, but it's back in Batman's voice.
Yeah. The doctor tells him it's brown bats and starlings fighting for a nest in his chimney. And that's why it doesn't match sounds he knows. And he's like, oh, thanks, Doc. He just lied to me. I have already checked those sounds put together, and then he pulls them up on his little bat computer there, and he's like, starlings, brown bats, and then plays them, and it's like, yeah, no, that's just not what that sound is.
And I was like, it's cool. It continues the mystery, because from there, you're like, oh, it's Dr. March, because Batman knows that he's lying, and we already know that something weird's happening, especially because the next scene, it cuts to some shadow, and I was obviously... If you're a kid, maybe it'll fool you. But I was like, oh, that's the shadow of Langstrom, Kirk Langstrom. Someone took the evidence that Bruce Wayne brought and lit fire to the recorder.
Yep.
And then he burned the hair samples. And then he started popping pills. And I'm like, oh. I was like, you're obviously the bad guy. Batman infiltrates the room looking for Dr. March. And he finds Kirk Langstrom. And Batman's like, hey, where's Dr. March? I know that he's the Man-Bat. And Kirk's like, you're a fool. It's not him. It's me. And I was like, oh. He basically Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde's it. Is it Doc?
Yep.
Yes. Mr. Hyde?
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I think so.
Nice. But he basically does that, and he's like, well, I started doing it, and now the bat knows what it needs to come out, so it's been hunting these chemicals. And I'm like, that's kind of freaky. That's exactly the thing that, for me, makes a lot of the Batman Rogues Gallery stand out. I'm in no place right now to pitch the Batman 2 movie, but I think that it should go from something as small scale of mob bosses and your first supervillain, which is just like a really smart crazy guy. That's fine, but it should just start to like exponentially escalate, because like that's the shit that Batman's dealing with on the regular basis. And it upsets me all the time when people are like, well, none of these villains would be villains if Batman wasn't Batman. I'm like, that is false. The only one that I can like almost get away with is like maybe Joker, but that's if you want to do the backstory of he fell into the vat of chemicals because Batman was there and he couldn't save him. I'm like, sure, maybe. But besides that, like, they were all being evil before he was there. They had their own claims to being evil before he was there. And I was like, cool. And thus, the world needs a Batman.
The thing with Man-Bat that I always kind of had in my head, like, he always gave me Lizard vibes from Spider-Man.
Yep.
But, like, the thing I get from him is that, like, the Lizard is like a remorseful villain, I guess. Like, he doesn't want to do this. It happens from time to time, whatever. But, like, I always thought of that Man-Bat was the same way. Like, oh, he doesn't want to transform, and when he does, it's not his thing, whatever. And then they go to this, and he's like, and I like being the Bat. And then he does it, and I just remember as a kid, his transformation scared the living crap out of me.
It was kind of spooky.
As a kid watching that was a scary thing. You watch it, you're like, oh god. It's kind of intense for the rest of what the show does. That's a way to kick it off.
I think a lot of evil transformations, especially earlier animation, they didn't go through because it was all like meticulously hand drawn. They didn't draw like beat for beat. It'd probably like a flash or like something fell or like smoke or something, and then like something else would appear. So it was kind of freaky to watch him like morph from person, grow kind of out of shape of a person, but still kind of human-like until he was the Man-Bat. It is freaky. Dr. Langstrom informs Batman that the Bat wants to stay, and then he transforms and begins to beat the brakes off of Batman. Francine shows up, and it's cool because even though he declared that he likes it and the Bat wants to stay out, he seemed kind of ashamed, the expression he made, and then he immediately flees. And then Batman grapples onto him, and they just like fly through the sky. It's a really cool scene where the Man-Bat flies up into the sky, like flies up and casts over the moon, and then flies down. And since Batman's behind him, he flies up, and I was like, hey, that's kind of like the bat signal. Because he like kind of makes a silhouette over the moon, and then he dives down behind the Man-Bat, and then you see the same blimp officers from the beginning of the episode. They're like, something's here. The other guy is like, shut up, there's nothing here. And then Batman crashes through the window, and I was like, that had to hurt, because it like cracked the window. And the officers call for backup. And it cuts to Bullock trying to hop on this helicopter to catch up with this chase, and then Gordon shuts him down. Gordon's like, no, I already talked to the mayor, you're off of this case, and you can either stay here or you can like fly with me, but I'm making sure that there's no more attacking the Batman. The Batman is not the suspect. It's the other guy. There's somebody else there. And so the two of them get into the helicopter and they fly off towards the commotion. There's a really cool scene of the Man-Bat flying through like a construction site. And you see Batman's face go from already kind of worried to, oh no, I might crash into steel beams. In which he crashes into a few of the steel beams, and you see that he's like visibly in pain, but he's holding on. And then he gets on top of him, and he like puts him in a chokehold and steers him into a wall. And the both of them stand up, and the helicopter shows up, spotting its light on them. And Batman was like bloodied and bruised, and I was like, there's blood in this? He was like bleeding from his mouth and from his nose. And after knocking out the Man-Bat by crashing him to the wall, he picks him up and he leaves. And then it cuts to Batman and Alfred in the Batcave. And Alfred wonders if what Kirk Langstrom has done to himself is permanent. But Batman says that because he found all the miscellaneous medications he had been taking to bring it out of him, that he would be able to reverse engineer it. And I really like that because it's just like using more things in the story. Even though he did mess up with who the Man-Bat was, he didn't mess up in the clues leading up to it. He was able to use those clues for a different purpose. I really like that. But he reverse engineers a cure, and then Batman carries a body back to his wife, and the wife's like, is he okay? And he uncovers him, and he says he's alright for now. He doesn't say he is cured. He says something about how he's alright for now. And I'm like, oh, so is Man-Bat coming back? Will this be kind of like a Lizard situation where he might pop up every now and then? And then the episode ends.
Yeah,
it's really fun. I think that's such a great introduction to Batman the Animated Series. I think that, especially in my case, I think Chloe would have been just as interested in this episode as any other one, but I think she was more interested with the Bat and the Cat. It wasn't called Bat and the Cat. I can't remember what it was called, but the Batman Catwoman episode is because it was a male lead and a female lead, and there's a clear issue with a lot of depictions of female characters in a lot of superhero media. I don't think Batman falls into that in Batman the Animated Series, at least, which I appreciate. They aren't just dumb pieces of candy for men around. Like, a lot of the female characters have agency, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. Poison Ivy scared the living hell out of me as a kid. I was genuinely terrified of her as a villain. And, like, when her and Batman would, like, go at it, my mind, as a kid, if anyone was ever going to knock off Batman, it was going to be her.
I also enjoy how Poison Ivy, again, it goes right back to the Batman isn't the reason these villains popped up. Like, they had their own thing going on. Poison Ivy is just trying to stop man from killing the environment, and that is her entire thing, which is really cool. And Batman, she just crosses paths with Batman because, one, she's in Gotham, and B, she's willing to take people out to save the environment.
Yep.
Eco-terrorist.
Yeah, no, the episode, like we've just kind of been saying, it's a great way to start this off for anyone who wants to figure out what's going on.
On Leather Wings is a great introduction to Batman the Animated Series. It's a very easy introduction to what Batman's about and what is the world he lives in, what's the tone of the world he lives in, and what to expect from not just the villain characters, but just like the normal world around him outside of his escapades as Batman. But I think Christmas with the Joker does that exact same thing with Robin as well. Just tagging Robin along. I've never understood why it's so difficult to make a Batman and Robin. Just in general, it's always upset me. I feel like many people can pitch a decent Batman and Robin movie, idea, story. Heck, there are so many good Batman and Robin comics, but the only Batman and Robin freaking live action thing we have is Batman 66 and Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, I guess. But those suck. Not that they suck. Well, Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, yes. Batman 66, he was on his own time. He was paid to do what he was doing. That's what Batman was. But I really enjoyed this episode. I didn't even know Robin was in it until Robin showed up. And I was like, it's Robin! Much like the relatability, quote-unquote, superheroes like Spider-Man, who is supposed to be not always younger. He is younger than Batman is at any time. I assume Spider-Man should be younger than Batman is. It's fun to have a younger character tag along with Batman, which is Robin's purpose. I just love having Robin around.
Yeah, like you said, I also forgot they just, dropped Robin in. I vaguely remember there being something with introducing him at some point, but I don't remember if they do Jason Todd or skip Atka's stuff and go straight to Tim Drake in one of the series, because Nightwing does show up later.
They kind of mishmash Tim Drake and Jason Todd's origin.
Yeah, and I do vaguely remember that, and there was a Robin intro, and I'm pretty sure there's an episode that they get into later where they go more in depth with his stuff, but I was just like, oh, they just kind of throw him in and it kind of works.
We've had superheroes around way too long to really focus on origin stories. I understand if you're going to go I want to tell a Animal Man story, and someone's like, who's Animal Man? Cool, give that backstory. But it's Batman. It's Batman. I've heard it so many times, and it's so funny because it's generally true of you could probably find a stranger and go, what's Batman's origin? And they'll probably know what Batman's origin is.
You know, I mean, it's turned into a meme every time we get a new Batman. Bruce's parents will be killed again. We have to watch those pearls another time. It did get tired when there were so many different introductions in various media. This did get kind of tired.
The only time I've appreciated watching Batman's origin, as horrible as this is going to sound, the Teen Titans Go to the movie.
Oh my god, yes.
That movie was so funny. Robin just wants his own movie, and he's like, brain blast. Travel back in time, stop all the heroes from becoming heroes, then they'll have to make a movie about me. He takes Bruce Wayne and his family, instead of going down Crime Alley, they go down Pleasant Lane. And then at the end of the movie, they have to go back and fix everything. They take Bruce Wayne's parents and put them back down Crime Alley. And you don't see what happens to the parents, but you see just the muzzle flashes and just Bruce Wayne's face go from smiling to sad.
Yeah, no, I do remember that, and it's absolutely wild.
But back to the Robin of things. As you said, they really just plop him in there. I don't remember if there's an episode where they properly introduce Robin. I'm sure there is. But
they do something with them trying to track down his parents' killer. I remember that much.
Oh yeah, because he gets kind of unhinged in that episode.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was his kind of first one. I was like, oh, okay, go crazy, I guess.
I also appreciate that he's introduced as the older Robin, and you're still treated to Tim Drake, the younger Robin later on, or a younger Robin later on. And I'm like, it works. It's a great thing. You can have the older Robin that's been jaded by being Robin for so long, and he's in Batman's shadow, and then he leaves, and then not immediately, but he then gets another Robin, and he's younger, just a whole different vibe from Dick.
Yeah.
Dick Grayson.
Yeah, good man.
Alright, I'm just gonna hop right into it. The episode's called Christmas with the Joker. I should have done this before Christmas, but here we are. I don't care. I do what I want. I really like the title card. It was a silhouette of the Joker holding big Christmas sack. Only lit up were his facial features, but they're yellow, and I was like, that's cool. It's just a cool shot. The episode starts with a bunch of inmates of Arkham singing Christmas carols, and I assume this is where the origin of the Christmas carol for Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Laid an Egg.
I think so. I can't remember if this is what started it, or it had been a thing, and this was just kind of a nod to that,
Yeah.
Don't remember, but yes.
But as Joker is singing along with the other inmates, he starts to decorate the tree, and then he gets a ladder and leans up to the tree to put the star on top. but he puts the star on top of his head, and then the tree starts to like lift off like a rocket, and he hops on, and the last line is the Joker got away, and he flies off. And I was like, that's actually pretty funny. And yeah, in my next note, all caps, Robin, because it cuts to Batman and Robin, and Batman's getting ready to go out on patrol for the night. Robin's trying to convince Batman out of going on patrol because it's Christmas Eve. He wants to eat Christmas dinner. He wants to watch It's a Wonderful Life. He's like, Batman, your Batmaning is getting in the way of Christmas, and I'm not having that. And Batman's explaining that Joker busted out of Arkham, and it's just all the more reason to go out there. And Robin doesn't believe that Joker would do anything on Christmas Eve. He says something like, even criminals have to spend time with their families. And Batman reveals that Joker doesn't have a family, which I think is really cool. It comes up later on in the episode. But basically, they make a deal that I assume the deal is made because Batman doesn't respond, but Robin's like, if we have a quiet patrol, can we come back and spend Christmas together? And Batman just kind of like Batmans and goes off. And then you get it's like a 30-second, 45-second just like continuous shot of just Christmas in Gotham. And I thought it was really cool. There's some like guy on the street playing his saxophone, and there are like kids playing around, and then there's like a little ice skating rink. I was like, cool. Even Gotham can have Christmas time and not, blow up. But after the little scene, you see Batman and Robin like skulking on top of the roofs, and Robin's still just like giving him a hard time because he just wants to go home, and he calls him a Scrooge because Batman's not really responding.
Does he say he hasn't seen A Wonderful Life, or am I thinking of something else?
Batman has not seen A Wonderful Life.
Okay, then, yeah, that's what I was thinking of then.
He does bring up that he hasn't seen It's a Wonderful Life, and he says that it always loses me just with the title. But they're looking from the roofs, they look down to the streets, and then Batman sees some guy running up on some old lady, and Batman's like, alright, time to swoop in. He swoops down, then he realizes that the guy she dropped a present down the street, and he's like, oh, here you go. And then Robin shows up, and he's like, can we go home now? And then they go home. They eat dinner. They're about to go and sit down and watch It's a Wonderful Life. And that's when Bruce reveals that he's never seen it. And Robin says that it's about how much one man can change the world. And that's why he thinks that Bruce would really like it. And as they sit down, he turns on the TV, and it's some sort of program that he can't skip. And he tries to like flip through the channels, and he can't get away from it. And then it reveals to be the Joker, and he's like broadcasting from some secret location. Joker just taunts everybody. He's like, Merry Christmas, Gotham, and that he has like all these surprises. Joker introduces Gotham to this new show. It's Christmas with the Joker, and that they're all going to have a great time. And I was like, ha, that's the name of the episode. And Batman says, it's never easy with the Joker. And I was like, oh, okay. As Joker is giving his little talk show thing, you see he references the audience, and it's just cardboard cutouts of the entire cast of Batman the Animated Series. And I thought that was pretty funny. Then Batman and Robin start looking for leads, and they head out in the Batmobile. You see on the television that Joker has captured this family. Joker says that since he has no family of his own, he had to make one. He captured a dad, a mom, and a baby. And the dad was Jim Gordon. The mom was just some random lady. I thought it was going to be I thought it was Barbara Gordon for a second, but it was not.
Wasn't she like a news anchor or something?
I think she is. I think she is the news anchor. And then the baby is Detective Bullock, the guy from the last episode.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really funny. They were like tied up and they were gagged with little candy canes. And Joker's like, oh, here's Daddy Lawful, and takes out the candy cane. He's like, you son of a, and then puts it back. Then he goes to the mom and the same thing. And then he goes to Bullock and the same thing. It's just a good bit. I'm a sucker for a great bit. But basically, Joker tells Batman that he has until midnight to catch him, or else they're all going to get it. They're going to get the best Christmas surprise of their life. And from the Joker, that's a promise and a threat. It was Daddy Lawful, Mommy Lawful, and Baby Lawful. And I kind of assume, like headcanon, just like one of Joker's goons are controlling the camera. There are all these like sweeping shots. It introduces like him by the fireplace, and then he walks over to the family. Then he walks over to this elaborate display that he built of Gotham, a replica of Gotham. And he blows up a bridge on the replica, and then he radios out to some of his goons, and he's like, Prancer, Dancer, you know what to do, and then they blow up a bridge, and I was like, oh, Batman and Robin are on a time limit. One, they have until midnight to find these people or they'll die, and he just blew up a train. From wherever they are, they have to go and deal with that. So the Batmobile turns immediately and heads towards the train. Oh, and Mommy Lawful.
Yeah, her mom's on the train or something,
yes,
right?
She exclaims that, and the Joker's like, oh, that sucks. After the Joker re-gags the lady, it cuts to Batman and Robin. They show up to the train, and Batman tells Robin to uncouple the train cars, and that he will go grab the engineer. And so he uncouples the thing, and then he hops to get the engineer. And while I was watching it, I think it's a little more of how you're saying the deliberacy of certain character traits that will influence larger things. I think that Batman should have been the one to uncouple the cars, and Robin should have went and grabbed the engineer, because Robin's an acrobat. Robin probably would have had a much easier time getting there and getting the guy out of there. But Batman had him do the safer thing, and then Batman went to go do the thing that could have gotten himself killed. And it's not like set or anything, and there's no animosity between them, but just watching it, I'm like, I think Robin could have done that faster and a little better than Batman, because Batman's just big and bulky, and Robin's built for these things. But Robin does uncouple the cars, and Batman grabs the engineer and bails out of the train. Train crashes, blows up. I think the animation was kind of silly, because the train crashed, and there was an explosion, but like, the train didn't explode. The train just kind of like bounced up and fell down, and there was an explosion. I was like, what exploded?
I don't remember that, but that is funny.
But Batman and Robin get back to the Batmobile, and they finally locate the Joker's radio signal, and they head to the signal. And once they get there...
Doesn't a machine gun or something happen?
Yes. Batman and Robin show up to the scene, and they're investigating to find the Joker, and they wound up at the observatory, and then the telescope actually is a cannon, and then it turns to them and starts to shoot them.
That's what it is.
And Joker reveals that he has a gift for Batman. He's kind of upset that Batman hasn't found him out yet and like found where he is yet. And I was like, oh, certain episodes, it feels like there's a difference. Sometimes it's like, this is a game for Joker. And sometimes it's Joker is actually trying to take out Batman. But because it was Christmas, I think Joker wasn't really trying to kill anybody. He was really just trying to do the thing with Batman, the thing that him and Batman do.
Yeah.
The cannon starts to shoot at Batman and Robin. And then it's really funny because Joker on his broadcast, he's like, well, we gotta like stay tuned for like the next part and like cut to the commercials, a word from our sponsor. And then like it's the commercial cut. And I was like, that's kind of funny. But as Batman's like juking out the cannon starts to like wildly shoot all over the place and starts to shoot into Gotham. And Robin sneaks into the observatory, and he's met with a bunch of Joker robots that have like little machine gun fingers. They start to shoot Robin, and then Batman calls him, and he says, Operation Cause and Effect. You have a contingency for this? Robin throws a batarang at the power source of the cannon, and it blows up, taking out the cannon. And I was like, wow, they had something for this. Which shouldn't surprise me because it's Batman, but it's just, again, it sets up. It's more setting up of this is how they do. They are prepared for things like this.
It makes them feel like they've been doing this for a bit, and it's not like offhand type of thing for them, you know? They have been doing it for a bit, that they understand how each other work, that they actually are a team.
Slight tangent. I can't remember what comic it's from, but Batman's talking about who his favorite Robin was of the group, and he was like, Dick was headstrong, Jason was reckless, and Damian was dangerous, and Tim's the only one that like enjoyed being a dynamic duo. Like, he learned all the runs, he learned all the protocols. Batman knew he could rely on Tim the most as a Robin because he knew that he was on the same page as Batman the entire time. And I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah, that kind of does check out. I mean, Tim has that thing with his dad, and he goes a little weird there for a bit, but other than that, yeah, no, Tim's like the blueprint Robin, like what you want out of a sidekick, I guess.
Third try. So after they destroy the cannon, they both realize that they still don't have the Joker's location. And it's really cool. Batman admits, because Robin's like, what do we do now? And Batman's like, honestly, I don't know. And I'm like, oh. And this is the second time within 2 episodes that you've seen, although they haven't said Batman's the world's greatest detective, you've seen he's supposed to be investigating things. And not just once, but twice, he is either fumbled or just does not know where to go next. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Batman says that he hopes for a miracle. And I'm like, oh. I was like, wow. I was like,
it's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah, it's a Christmas miracle. The Joker is really upset because, again, Batman has yet to find him. And so Joker gives Mommy Lawful the gift, and she opens it, and it's a Betty blooper doll. And I was like, har, har, har. And the little doll turns on, and it like marches over to the Gotham display and starts wrecking things. And Robin notices that I guess I should have said this at the beginning of this segment, but as I said, Dick and Bruce were trying to watch It's a Wonderful Life, but the Joker hijacked the television station for all of Gotham, so this is broadcasting throughout Gotham, the entire episode. So all of these things that we're seeing of the Joker with the people he's captured, talking to Batman, like everyone sees this. So throughout the episodes, we're given hints for like where he might be. And here with the Betty Blooper doll, Robin points out that
Toy Factory.
Yes, that's a toy that he hasn't seen in years. And Batman's like, yeah, 14 years to be exact. It has to be at an abandoned toy factory. And so they go to LAFCO. And another red flag. I'm glad that the factory is at least shut down and abandoned. But there really should be some sort of law in Gotham against clown-related things. Like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
I was like, do you guys like this? Are you, like, am I missing something? I wrote down, clown-related things shouldn't exist in Gotham. Also, does Joker want to be caught? Because Joker, initially he was kind of vague about things, but he started dropping larger and larger hints throughout.
I absolutely think so in this part. The Joker wants to be caught. He is playing a game right now. He has no real goals for this one. He just wants to have his, to me, this is him celebrating the holiday. He literally doesn't care. It's a one-night thing. He's going to go back to Arkham the next day. This is his present he wants to have for himself. He's just having fun.
I think I agree, because we get to the present later on. So Batman and Robin show up at the factory, they break in, and then you see the Joker see them, and he runs, and he turns on a record player, and it starts playing Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. And then these giant nutcrackers start to attack them, and they start destroying them. And then these toy airplanes, like Joker airplanes, start flying towards them. And then Batman grabs a bat out of a crate and starts hitting them. And then Robin's like, I see why they call you the Batman. I was like, shut the hell up, Robin. I put sniper goons. Then some of the Joker thugs with snipers show up, and they start shooting at the two of them. And then they both split up. Batman runs up the stairs. He doesn't run up the stairs. He doesn't do stairs. He grapples up to the second floor, and he runs behind these toy bears. They keep shooting at the bears. He throws his cape over one of the bears, and they shoot at the bear, and then he pushes it over, and it crashes onto them. And at first, I was like, are we about to get a capeless Batman shot? Because we do, at some points throughout the series, see Batman without his cape. But he just had another cape on. I was like, it's fine.
Yeah, I have somewhere still at my house back home. I have a suitcase filled with Batman, the animated series action figures, and one of them is capeless Batman, and it's beautiful, and I love it dearly. There's
a comic, Adventures of John Kent Superman, and I really like his Superman outfit. It's probably one of my favorite superhero outfits. I've written down a list somewhere, and maybe I'll share it with you after we're finished. But I just have a list of superhero outfits I really enjoy. I really like John Kent because he has a cape. I don't know if it's detachable or if it just disappears, but there are multiple points where he has cape sometimes, and he just does not have cape sometimes. I was like, it's cool that it's an option.
Interesting.
But after Batman takes out the snipers, we make it to the room with the Joker in it, and Joker's dangling the family, the lawful family, over a vat of molten something, some sort of molten liquid.
Yeah.
And Joker gives Batman a gift. Robin's like, Batman, don't open it. Batman repeats again, it's never easy with the Joker. And then he opens it, and it's just a cream pie to the face. And then Joker laughs. Again, it really just plays into my brain of, I think even Batman knows that Joker really isn't out here trying to, yes, he will harm people because he's crazy, but he didn't come out here with a real purpose. He really just wanted to, I guess, he wanted to celebrate his Christmas. This was his Christmas present.
Mm-hmm. Also, in as much the same way, this is a present for Batman, too. I mean, you have to remember, he was like, we're going on patrol, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, chill out. And whenever all this happened, a small part of Batman was fist pumping. He's like, yes, finally.
Action.
Yeah, so this captures Batman and Joker beautifully, because Joker's just screwing around, having fun, having a good Christmas, and Batman's like, this is a gift to me too, because I can do my thing on Christmas. It's so messed up, but it so perfectly captures the characters of Batman and Joker on Christmas.
Yes, it also gives me the vibes of the argument of, is Batman crazy? Not is he crazy? Batman is crazy. And
how crazy is Batman?
How crazy is Batman? But basically, he takes it, and he let it happen, and then he just wipes himself off. Joker snips the rope, and then he catches the family from over the molten liquid. Then he dashes after Joker. Joker runs upstairs, and then he like slips on like a roller skate, and he falls off towards the molten liquid. And then Batman catches him, and then he says, "Merry Christmas, Joker." This is a game.
Yeah, I'm like, watch that, and I'm like, they're both just like dum-da-dum-da-dum, playing their little game with each other when they were like, people's just lives at risk, and they're like, dum-da-dum-da-dum, like, a train blew up for this, and they're both just like, ha-ha-ha, good one, buddy.
And at the end, you see Bruce and Dick have gotten back to Wayne Manor, and Alfred says something along the lines of, it's a good thing that Jim Gordon had a copy of It's a Wonderful Life, and he lent it to them. And then Batman was like, I actually kind of liked it. And then it cuts to Joker singing in Arkham, and then he says Merry Christmas, and then it's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's the first time they do Joker, and like I said, there's a lot of subtle things in this that perfectly sum up Joker and Batman.
They're both crazy.
Yep.
For the longest time, the big Batman stories that people are supposed to love and like, I was never a real big fan of them. Like, I've never really been a fan of The Killing Joke, and I've never been a big fan of The Dark Knight Strikes Back. What is it?
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns? Are you sure? Not are you sure. I always mix it up because the freaking Nolan trilogy messed me up. Because it's Batman Begins, Dark Knight.
Yeah, you're mentioning the Frank Miller book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Dark Knight Returns.
And then the Nolan trilogy is Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
It messed me up forever since then. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of The Killing Joke and Batman Returns. The more I have read the two, I like the ending of The Killing Joke, and I like Carrie Kelly out of The Dark Knight Returns. I don't really like Dark Knight Returns, and I also don't like the art. But that's not the point. At the end of The Killing Joke, famously, Joker tells Batman the joke, and it's the whole, they're two crazy people, they're trying to break out of an asylum, and they sneak up to the top, and they have a flashlight, and he was like, okay, so I'm going to shine the light, I'm going to cross over the light, and then whenever it's your turn, I'll shine the light, and you can cross over. And he was like, I'm not stupid. Yeah, he's like, I'm not stupid, you're going to turn the light off halfway. And then both of them start laughing. And I had to read that so many times, because I was like, I don't get this. But I think the entire thing is like, they're crazy. Like, it makes sense to them because they're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of the same way. That was the first real comic book that I read, because, you know, I had always heard, oh, blah, 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 this thing's so good. So I read it. My dad had it, and I read it, I'm like, Dad, what was that? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't get it. And he's like, that's the point. You're not supposed to get it. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's stupid. I hate comic books, blah, 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 blah. This is why I don't ever read them, because they're dumb and childish and make no sense. As I'm like 13, I'm like, yeah. And then I read it again, and I'm like, oh, wait, this is genius.
It's a really well thought out story. Like, I cannot argue that. Killing Joke's really good, really well put together. I think if I had to recommend a Joker story for somebody, I really like not Zack Snyder. I enjoy Scott Snyder's comic run on Batman, and everything he does to the Joker is really cool. From like him like cutting his face off and like tacking it on to all the Joker in that comic run is really cool. And
was he War of Jokes and Riddles, or was that Tom King?
That's Tom King. I also like Tom King.
I really like that as a Joker story.
A lot of people like to poop on Tom King's run, but I really, really enjoyed Tom King's run.
There are some parts of it that are really dumb. I will say that, but there are a lot of really good things in it too. Like, I love the War of Jokes and Riddles.
I think it is amusing how Batman feels that he has to explain to Catwoman, the criminal, that there was this one time where I did this wrong thing and I like went over the edge and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, A, you're crazy. B, she's a criminal. She doesn't care. This is you getting something off your chest about something you care about. But it is it's a really fun portrayal of the Joker. And I say fun because the entire thing, like, he's lost his laugh. And it's such a fun gimmick. And then the Riddler shows up to try to bargain with him, and then he shoots the Riddler. He's like, I thought that'd be funnier.
But yeah, I mean, this episode for Joker, like I said, it's great. It's a great way. I mean, like we said, Mark Hamill, perfect. It took me so long to know that was Mark Hamill. Like, I think I watched the series the first time as a kid. I was like, yeah, great. And then at some point, like, it might have not have been till high school, I was like, wait a second, that was Luke Skywalker? I think my dad mentioned it, and I was like, haha, like, funny joke. And he's like, no, that was Luke Skywalker, that was Mark Hamill. I'm like, what? I'm like, no. I'm like, he's not a voice actor. He does live action stuff. And he's like, no, he's a voice actor way better than a live action actor. I'm kind of on the same page with that one now. I think he's not a bad stage film actor, but oh my God, is he a killer voice actor?
I can tell that he just enjoys the voice acting more than the live action acting.
Yeah.
I'm the same way I watched Batman the Animated Series. I watched all of regular show. I've seen a number of things with Mark Hamill in it, and I didn't even recognize it.
He's Ozai in Avatar, too.
Yeah, he's...
Like, didn't know that till a couple years ago. I'm like, that's crazy.
He likes his villainy.
He does, and it's so funny because it's Luke, the, like, first himbo ever, and he's now done so many of these, like, villains that are just, like, scum of the earth. It's perfect.
Well, I hope to do this again in the future. I would like to watch more Batman the Animated Series and talk to you on it. I mean, like, I can make notes, talk about it, you jump in, you can make notes, talk about it, jump in, etc. I'll try to make it more organized next time, but hopefully I can do this one a little more than other things. But thank you for joining me.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for doing it.
Alright, I'll catch you later.
Catch you later, my friend.